All right, so in today's video, we're going to be talking about measuring a tube bundle that is still in service when it needs to be replaced and you cannot find an identification tag or an ASME nameplate or any other identifying information where we could quote it without additional measurements from you. First measurement is going to be the overall length. Now you don't need to be accurate to within a 32nd of an inch here, but be conservative. So for measurement A, we're going to take our tape measure from the back of the tube sheet or the inside face of the shell flange. We're going to hook our tape and we're going to measure to the back of the shell. And in this case, we have 37 inches. So we'll record that on our sheet. All right, so the next dimension on our worksheet is the flange circumference. This is going to be the flange where the tube bundle is installed. This can be a difficult dimension to get, especially if the piping is still in place, because you cannot take a tape measure and simply measure across. So a good trick to use is to use a garment tape or a pie tape and simply wrap it around the circumference of the flange. And so we'll do that now, and then we'll record that dimension on our sheet. And in this case, we have 33¼ inches. So the next dimension on our worksheet is the shell circumference or shell size. Once again, this is going to be difficult to measure because you're not going to be able to use a tape measure and simply go side to side. If you can access the back of the shell, sometimes you can use a tape measure that way. But if the shell is uninsulated, you can once again use a garment tape or a pie tape and simply wrap it around the diameter of the shell pipe to get your dimension. And we'll just record that on the sheet. In this case, we have 21 inches. All right, so next up on our measurement worksheet is dimension D, which is the weld line to the end of the shell. This is the weld that attaches the end cap to the back end of the shell. We like this measurement in order to make sure that the replacement tube bundle properly fits into the shell assembly. So the way to check that is to find a straight edge or a level, put it at the back end of your shell, and then simply take your tape measure, measure to the weld line where it's attached. In this case, we have 3½ inches, and we'll record that on our sheet. The next dimension on our worksheet is the tube sheet thickness, or dimension E. We're just going to simply measure the distance sandwiched between both flanges on the head assembly. So we'll take our tape measure. Once again, I do not like to use the hook because the hook of a tape measure can move in or out up to 1/8 of an inch, depending on your tape measure. So I like to start it on a clean line and just measure the total thickness. In this case, I have 1 inch, including the gaskets, and I'll record that on our dimension sheet. All right, so the next step in determining the dimensions of our tube bundle is to try and determine the diameter of the tube sheet. We've already used the dimension B, which is the flange circumference measurement. Providing us with that, in addition to the dimension or depth from the top of the flange or from the side of the flange into the outer rim of a tube sheet, is going to allow us to work backwards and to find the true diameter of the tube sheet without taking the tube bundle out of service. All right, so when you're taking the dimension from the tube sheet to the lip of the flange, you'll insert a ruler. At the top, try and do your best to find top dead center, and then measure to the outside lip of the flange. And in this case, we have 1 inch, and we'll record that on our sheet. Now, it's a very good idea to record this dimension on in more than one spot in case the tube sheet is installed slightly out of center. So you can check the dimension on the side of the flange and the opposite side as well. If you give it to us in 2 or 3 places, that would be excellent. The next dimension on our worksheet is the cross bolt center to center, or the opposite bolt hole center to center. Now in the field or when a heat exchanger is still installed, this dimension could be very challenging to get. Even in a heat exchanger that's uninstalled and just sitting on a workbench like this one, it's going to be very difficult to get because you cannot put your tape onto the assembly and get a good measurement without running into other interferences and other obstructions. If you can get that, absolutely we would love to have it. But the next dimension that should always be able to be gotten is the adjacent bolt hole center to center. So the way to measure that is to simply measure from the outside or inside of one bolt or stud to the outside of the next stud. And if you do it correctly, you will get the center to center. And I'm going to show you how to do that with a tape measure now. So you will measure from the inside of the first stud to the outside of the next stud. And in this case, I have 3 7/16 of an inch. That's the center to center dimension. If you come from the outside of the first stud, you just need to go to the inside of the next stud. And once again, I have the same dimension, 3 7/16 of an inch. Once you've taken the adjacent measurement, center to center, make sure you count and record the number of bolts in the flange. In this case, we have an 8-bolt flange.
Once your measurement guide is filled out, send it to our team at the email listed in the description, and we'll get a quote to you fast. And when you're ready to order, keep in mind that we offer 2 bundle replacements for all major manufacturers. BoilerSupplies.com also offers 5-day, 48-hour, and 24-hour build and ship options. Yes, you heard us right. We can build your replacement bundle in as little as 24 hours. Thank you for watching. Feel free to visit us at BoilerSupplies.com anytime.